The decrease in demand for loans, caused by low consumption, prevents the formation of credits. If the demand for lending remains low and credit is informed, then central banks have no other choice but to expand the money supply in order to counter deflation in the long run.
The deflationary trend observed since the 2008 financial crisis has wider implications for monetary policy too. Low inflation puts upward pressure on real interest rate, thus forcing central banks to lower the nominal interest rate even further in order to provide effective credit liquidity and stimulate growth. This led to the recent trend in low interest rates observed around advanced economies and significantly reduced the power of central banks to cope with a COVID-19 recession. In theory, setting a lower interest rate will encourage people to take more credit from banks, which will in turn result in higher consumption and investment. Therefore, in order to understand how an aging population affects the efficiency of monetary policy, we need to understand how households at different stages of development relate to credit. Households accumulate debt as they go through the early stages of adulthood, but are able to pay off this debt as they age and end up creditors by the time they hit life's later stages. For this reason, younger households are more sensitive to changes in interest rates than older ones since they need more credit. In this case, monetary policy has a reduced impact on an aging population, and lower interest rates will only partially help the economy recover in a recession. Lastly, there is another implication of an aging population on monetary policy. As we had seen before, an aging population has been among the main drivers of low interest rates and inflation we had experienced since the 2008 financial crisis. With interest rates at low levels, the power of central banks to stimulate consumption in case of a recession is limited by the fact that nominal interest rates cannot fall behind 0%. Therefore, as we had seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, central banks will try to turn to unconventional monetary policy during a deep recession. While expanding the balance sheet of a central bank with quantitative easing proved an efficient tool in stimulating the financial markets since the downturn in April, there are consequences. These policies are not only very expensive, but the impact is disproportionately larger on Wall Street as opposed to Main Street, thus potentially widening the wealth gap even further.
To quickly summarize, an aging population consumes less. This reduction in transactions has deflationary consequences which are tried to be countered by monetary policy. However, central banks' efforts to stimulate the economy by lowering interest rates aren't as effective anymore, as interest rates have a reduced impact on an aging population. This, in combination with the fact that nominal interest rates cannot fall below 0%, makes it more difficult for central banks to counteract recessions. Thus, central banks have to turn to unconventional methods such as quantitative easing to help the economy recover in a downturn which could further increase wealth inequality. Concluding, it seems inevitable that other countries ought to follow Japan's example of an extremely aged population and all its consequences.